What's going on, guys? Welcome to another series of or another episode review for Spice and Wolf. This is episode 6 and 7, and with me, as always, I have Bluespade.
Yeah. So we continue. Continuing on from episode 5, in which Lawrence and Holo are being pursued by people in the church, and of course, it was just most of the episode is just being pursued um, by whoever's working with the church, and eventually they get cornered by what was it?
You all
It,
right?
it was yeah, Yare, because I keep confusing with Chloe from the original anime series, because yeah,
Yeah, I did
like I
see a
mentioned.
comparison seen online for the original series compared with the new series, how they like handled this scene. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, with Yare is of course, like I mentioned before, he's the original character from the light novels. Chloe, of course, is the anime original character that takes Yari's place. I still don't. Part of me still doesn't understand why that. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but I still don't understand, like, why they went the direction why they, that they did to completely replace the character. They said maybe because like they wanted to have like someone with like maybe with some prior relationship with Lawrence, but I just don't. I don't
well,
know.
I,
It
I
doesn't
thought I
make
thought
sense if
Yare
you're trying.
did kind of didn't he also technically have a prior relationship with Lawrence? Or
Well, yeah, not that kind relationship
oh, you meant
in a
like
sense.
okay, like a romantic
Yeah,
relationship.
I would say, yeah, somewhat almost like a romantic relationship with Lawrence, but for Yari's case, like he's more of a more devout in his in his sense to capture Holo in a way. For
Hmm.
Chloe's case, it's more like just in trying to be with Craft, I guess, working as a business partner and something more after that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's so with once Yare and the other and his other men like end up cornering Holo and Lawrence. Actually, well, Lawrence actually gets um almost gets stabbed during that pursuit. So they get
Doesn't
cornered
he get
at
stabbed in the arm?
yeah, he gets stabbed, and like they end up getting cornered by like at the end of like the sewage system, in which they try to escape like right above, but they have no way to climb up. So
Well,
it
also,
gets to the point.
yeah. So yeah, Lawrence does get stabbed in the arm, and he's like leaving a trail of blood behind him, of course. So it kind of make it easier for them to get found. But at some
Yeah.
point, like I guess he got he passed out, and I guess Holo like wrapped a bandage around his arm.
Hmm. Well, well, yeah, of course, and Holo ends up sucking his blood, which of course turns transforms her into her true wolf form, and of course it's I would say, like, the sequence is a lot more, um, a little bit more realistic than how they presented it back in the original anime series. I mean, like you mentioned before, there was a comparison video between these two scenes, and in the original anime, it was like, we see her transform, but they do it in multiple angles, uh, repeatedly. But for this one, like we get to see her like almost slowly transforming into her true wolf form soon after that. At the same time, we see her just going on a rampage, basically just like in, uh, I would say somewhat killing and injuring most of those
I
pursuers
think she
before.
definitely killed at least like one or two of them because there was a scene where she like because I was thinking like oh she's probably not killing them, but then there was a scene where she just like it looks like she like stomped one of them to death or something.
Yeah,
Um,
and that
it looked like she was about to do that to Yare, like she was about to like just eat him, but Lawrence like pleads for her to stop, and it looks like I think she let him go, um, but and he only like sustained some, I guess, some fairly minor injuries.
Yeah, and of course, he ends up passing out from his injuries soon after that before he gets recovered by, what was it? The trading company. So yeah, but of course, not only before that, like he yells at Holo that, that she needs to pay him back with, for all the clothes that she ended up destroying for transforming into her wolf form in the first place.
Yeah. Um, I think she was like considering leaving if for a moment because of how like probably because of how like Lawrence reacted to seeing her true form, but then he tries to stop her, and then of course he finds out later that she does stay behind, or she stays with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh,
So yeah, so he eventually gets yeah, returns to the trading company, and of course they walk us through like what happened after during the events of the sewer. And I think what was it uh what was it Marit? I can't pronounce his name.
there's something like that.
Is the yeah, so he tells Lawrence about what happened afterwards, after like Lawrence passes out from his injuries, and he witnesses Holo transforming back into her human form, and of course, she of course decides to go back to Lawrence to hopefully pay back the damages to the clothes that she ended up destroying. So, and also at the same time, Lawrence gets back some of the payment for what was it, for the silver coins that he obtained. Uh, Mainly, he requests it be given in pepper because he knows that um, it'll be the upcoming season uh, will be in high demand for pepper due like due to people wanting to cook with that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So now he's got all this pepper that I guess he needs to sell. Um, so in the next episode, he goes to like him and Holo go to this nearby town to try to sell off his pepper. Um, and this one guy he tries to sell it to this person, and I guess like this is another instance of like I guess that person in a way like trying to swindle him or something. Um,
Yeah, he uses like of course these balancing scales to calculate how much each pepper would cost. But thanks to Holo's intuition, she immediately figures this out by purposely spilling a cup of water on the table, which causes like the flooding of water just spill down all the way over to the other end of the table. Which of course Lawrence figures this out by accusing the shop owner of like of purposely imbalancing the weight of the pepper. So
hmm.
so in exchange for not 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 snitching on the shop owners, like swindling, he decides to get it back by receiving like um what was it he I think he receives was armor from the shop.
I think so. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So and then well, and then earlier on in the episode, like there was this conversation between Lawrence and Holo about like these um what was it like pickled like peaches or something like with honey, and
Yeah.
it gets her like to want try to go and seek these out like where, and I guess she decided to go and eat those, um and get really drunk at some point.
Yeah, it's just it's more or less like Holo's love for
Food.
different confectionaries outside of apples most of the time. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's more of the same like usual, like I guess like the same type of banner we always like to see with between Lawrence and Holo.
Yeah,
Um,
and then there's also another, I guess you'd say, somewhat important character that gets introduced to the. Well, I didn't know it was going to be at the end of the episode because they do tease her at the beginning of the episode. And I knew who this character was from the original series, so I was wondering how they were gonna, how maybe how she was gonna be different in this one. But, um,
yeah,
yeah, she does.
I think
Yeah,
they sort of meet on under similar circumstances, from the original anime. But yeah, it's the character we're talking about is Nora Arendt, who's of course a shepherd from the church.
yeah, um, yeah. So they come across her, and before they meet her, Holo says like, well, it's basically because they have to take a detour. But Holo says like that she's that people like her are like some of her, like I guess like technically like some of Holo's enemies or something like that, or she doesn't have a good relationship with them. I guess that must be because they're representatives of the church, or they're associated with the church. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so um, yeah, so of course this is at the end of the episode. Lawrence and the shepherd, the shepherd girl meet, and that's how the episode ends. Unfortunately, like we don't really get to see it, much of her in this episode. But I nonetheless thought it was a decent episode.
Yeah.
It definitely seems like the series, much like the original series, the pacing is pretty slow. It was pretty interesting these in the last few episodes because of the church or the trading company, I guess, going after Lawrence and Holo, and her like transformation. But a lot of it is just the banter between Holo and Lawrence and their relationship developing over time, as well as
Yeah.
like the trading stuff and stuff with the economy.
Yeah, in terms of like the Holo and Lawrence's banter, I feel like they have a lot. The way this is presented in this version of the anime, it seems like they have better chemistry in this one in comparison to the original anime from almost a decade ago. I
Mhm.
mean, obviously, outside of like the older animation style, which kind of didn't age as well as it should have. But in terms of like its voice acting, I think they made a major improvement in the voice acting when it comes
Is
to Holo and Lawrence's
is it the same
relationship.
Japanese cast from the original
Oh
series?
yeah, it's the same Japanese cast from the original series, and if not and of course so we have the same two voice actors who voiced them in the English dub as well.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. It's kind of hard for me to compare because it has been a while since I've seen the original series, but um. Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I liked about the original series, and I do think it is done pretty well here in in I guess you'd say the remake. Um, I mean I also like wasn't expecting again because it's been a while since I've seen the original series, like they even kind of name dropped the Spice and Wolf title in the previous episode, and it kind of was there in like a way that made sense. um but yeah, there were some things about like the new one that I think are done are done better. I mean, it definitely looks better, of course. um I think that of course, like I mentioned before, uh, another thing I really like is Kevin Pinkin doing the soundtrack. Um,
Yeah,
I like the soundtrack of the original as well, but yeah, I like every time Kevin Pinkin's involved with something, it's the soundtrack is usually pretty good. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
And also in terms of like with certain characters like well Yara in particular, I think he I say he makes a better fit in this story than what Chloe did in the original because with
yeah,
Chloe being there in the original anime series, it just like I just felt like she just created a wedge between Lawrence and Holo's relationship in particular because they threw her in there like she's some like third wheel in a romance story, which I don't think it really fit. I don't. I just really feel like her being involved in between Lawrence and Hello kind of I don't know. It kind of made you know the dynamic between Holo and Lawrence kind of suffer a little bit, but
mhm.
without her being there, I think the relationship between Lawrence and Holo is a lot more natural in this one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you don't have anything like that to sort of get in the way. Um, yeah, I mean, and it just doesn't even make sense anyway, considering the Yari character already existed, and they decided to, just add in an original character. Um,
Yeah, I mean, they just completely replace him entirely for no almost no reason at that point of the story.
yeah. But yeah, I don't have too much else to say about the episode. The series has definitely it's been really good so far. Like I said, it's definitely taking its time. The much like the original series too. The pacing is a little bit slower. But when interesting stuff does happen, it's really good. And of course, the just the relationship between Hall and Lawrence is like one of the main reasons to, that people would want to watch it. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to say about these episodes.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison with the original and this one, I'm enjoying this version a lot more than I did with the original version. I mean, it's almost similar to to when when people were watching the original Metal Alchemist in comparison to the more recent Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. That's pretty much
Yeah.
how the similar feeling that I got with this one.
Well, and I mean, this is kind of the same thing where it's supposed to be closer to the source material as opposed to the original series, which for what, of course, for different reasons, I guess didn't, it had to go off in a different direction and added in a lot of filler, much like the original Full Metal Alchemist did. And, of course, we don't really have that problem with this one, considering the light novel's already finished, so they can adapt it as, in a faithful manner, as opposed to how they did it with the original anime. Um,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, so that all being said, guys, until next time, we will see you all later.